It's so great to see so many faces on my screen here today. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to our Meet the Leader session with Rajamannar, who's the CMO of MasterCard and President of Healthcare. And for those of you who may not know me, I'm Michelle Froh. I'm the SVP of Marketing Strategy and Sciences at MetLife and the co-chair of the Marketing Society New York. And I'll be hosting the session with my co-chair, Jason Chabab, from Head of Strategy at 180 New York. And so we'll be hosting this great session for you today. So, like I said, it's so great to see everyone. So many members here today from all of our different hubs around the world, including Dubai and New York and UK. And if this is your first society event, or maybe you're a guest considering membership, we wanted to just give you a little bit about us. The Marketing Society is really a place to think and grow and connect with a global network. We have over 2,500 members. And we're committed to helping marketing leaders be brave and make an impact as change makers. So we know that when we come together, we connect and we have conversations, we can help each other do well, not only in our careers and our lives, but also do good in our businesses, the economy, and the world. So as such, we want this to be a very interactive session. So please do use the chat box on Zoom here. Pop in right now, say a big hello, tell us where in the world you're calling in from, and please comment along the way and ask some questions as we go. So today is all about meeting leaders, and we're sitting down with Rajamannar from beautiful office view there in Purchase, New York. And as I said, he is the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer and President of Healthcare Business at MasterCard, and author of a Wall Street Journal bestseller, Quantum Marketing. Usually Jason holds up his copy. And we've been talking about it a lot, Raja. And he,
Thank you, Jason.
Raj is recognized worldwide for his transformational leadership, having managed large-scale Fortune 500 businesses across many industries: financial services, consumer packaged goods, healthcare, including Unilever, Citigroup, Anthem, and MasterCard. So we're really excited, Raja, for you to share your personal lessons about your innovative and award-winning career. So with that, let's just get started and pop right in. We wanted to start with an icebreaker, Raja, and really you can go anywhere you want with us, but we thought it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on one word that describes what motivates you.
I don't want to say the obvious one, which is purpose. I would rather say potential.
Potential, love that. That's great. But speaking of purpose, we do want to ask you a question about that.
Please do.
So, unlike many, you've talked about brand purpose in a very concrete way. And specifically, you draw a distinction between purpose marketing and cause marketing. And that seems like a pretty important viewpoint that we'd love to have you share and draw some distinction for us on that. And frankly, kind of a second part to the question is, given that the private sector, our role is ever increasing to help change society, what do you think the next evolution in this area might be?
Yeah, see, I think this is one of the most confused areas because it is confusing. Many people use purpose and cause fairly interchangeably. And when they talk about purpose drivenness and cause marketing, they're pretty synonymous to many people, but they're actually very different. The way I would say purpose is the reason why you or the company exists, right? It is closer to being like a North Star. What guides you? How you get there is through a series of strategies and tactics and executions, one of which is cause marketing. So not all purpose drivenness translates to cause marketing, but all cause marketing and a lot more other areas ladder into purpose. So one of the simpler ways I keep telling my team is purpose is your North Star, and cause marketing is like a roadmap. But to get to your purpose, towards your purpose, just the roadmap itself is not sufficient. You have to have so many other things. You need to have a car, you need to have fuel, you need to have so many other things which will get you there. So that's like, so it's not just about cause marketing that is equal to purpose driven. That's it. That's number one. Number two, there is a lot of purpose washing out there. So it's almost become a mandatory sound bite that everyone has to give, or for the CEOs, to expound at every single forum, to say that we are larger than life, we're doing a great job. You see the same script crafted by company after company after company in an inane, insipid, meaningless fashion. The key thing is, are the companies really living purpose drivenness? Are they really doing something about it? Right? It has to go beyond sound bites for sure and political correctness. I think the first step is when everyone is feeling compelled to talk about purpose. That means that it is beginning to understand that there is an expectation that companies are purpose driven instead of being purely in pursuit of profit or purely self-serving. And that's a good start number one. Number two, from consumers' perspective, and I'll talk about B2B in a second, but from consumer perspective, particularly the younger generation of people, the Gen Zs, the millennials, they are probably more evolved souls than the previous generations for sure, because they seem to be more in service of the society and more conscious about other people's suffering and about the planet and the well-being and so on. They are demanding that brands and companies actually take a stance. They have to be purpose-driven. They have to take a stance on societal issues and not just simply create pretty advertisements, but take actions that solve those societal pain points or societal issues. They're expecting that from the brands to happen. And they're willing to pay. In fact, a lot of studies have shown they're willing to pay a premium on those companies' products that are purpose-driven for a parity of quality. So everything else being equal, they're willing to pay more. That's a huge thing. They're willing to vote with their wallets. Likewise, many millennials and Gen Z folks, they say that they are happy to work for a lesser pay and for a longer time in companies which they believe are truly purpose-driven. Now, for me, one of the live examples for us is MasterCard, where we are not the best paymasters. We pay far lesser in many cases than our competitors do. But our turnover is very minimal. And the second thing is people are highly motivated. Even during the pandemic, we had the highest level of employee satisfaction in the results that we do compared to any year. It's growing year after year after year. And our attrition is this thin. And that's fantastic. So both from internal audiences and external audiences, if purpose is lived authentically, genuinely, and consistently, that is great. Now, why do I say consistently is an important point? Because if today you said, this is the cause I'm backing, Black Lives Matter is now politically hot, so let me talk about that, let me go. Then tomorrow, it'll be something else which will be the hot topic. So if I keep chasing the new shiny penny, nothing sticks to you as a brand. And what you're doing is jumping from one politically correct to the next politically correct thing. That's not what consumers are expecting. Now let's look at the B2B side. Companies like BlackRock have done an amazing job really elevating the discussion. And actually they are challenging CEOs, saying that, okay, we need to see purpose in your actual actions. And they are sitting on a huge amount of money that CEOs need them to invest in their company stocks to sustain the market cap and things like that. So from that perspective, there is a good beginning that is happening in the B2B space, particularly from the investor community. So that's the other one. Last one, some of the evolved companies, and I'll give examples of, like, say, Unilever and even Procter & Gamble, who are holding their supply chains to certain standards, whether it is on diversity or whether it is on environmental safety and climate protection. So I think there is a movement that is happening, and I think this is going to be an integrated part of our lives into the future. And if a company has a purpose, I see marketing is the one which will bring it to life. And therefore, we as marketers are at the front and center of this entire movement, which I think is delightful.
That is very exciting. And I know it motivates a lot of us here on the call as well, Raja. Thank you for your thoughts.
Yes. So, Raja, one of the things that is a large part of the DNA and the brand of MasterCard, as everybody on this call knows, is consumer experiences. And obviously, you lead with that. I know you often lead with that concept of priceless experiences, but experiences is a big part of this brand, and I know you're on record of saying that too. How on earth did MasterCard cope with a world over the last 18 months where most consumer experiences have been shut off, locked down, inaccessible, in all but the home? That must have been very difficult. How did you manage that?
See, I think with a lot of, how do you say, decisiveness, we shifted significant portions of our advertising budget towards experiences. So we reduced our overall advertising and moved that money quite a lot into experiences. So experiences became literally the central stage, or center stage for us as a company. Sometimes God is great and kind, and it was a happy scenario for us where in 2018, I believe, we were doing one of our strategy sessions, and I was just asking the team, what are all the risks that we as a marketing department face? External risks. So we talked about the cybersecurity threat, data privacy problem, compliance issues. There are so many of these that we face: brand disintermediation risk, brand dilution risk, reputational damage risk. So many of the public limited companies or public companies, they do what is called a risk matrix and submit it to their board members every single board meeting. So we said, actually, we should be doing as marketing department a risk matrix and then have contingency plans against each one of those risks that we identify. And we need to do training. We need to have manuals. We need to have a governance process around this. So my CFO at the time, I asked her to take on this brave new role of being the head of risk management for marketing and communications. It was a very unusual kind of a thing because I tried to see if any other CMOs have done so I can derive inspiration from them and learnings from them, more importantly. But curiously, nobody has done it, including ourselves. So I said, okay, let's make a beginning. So we formed that, and then she started very methodically going through different kinds of risks. What's the probability that they will happen? What is the kind of implication we'll have on the business? And how do we contain that, avoid it? Or if it happens, how do we contain it? And what kind of training we need to do. So we went through all that process. One of those scenarios was that people will not be able to get out of their house. And the reason why we put it is we thought there'll be maybe a war in a country, for example. There could be a war. Or we said there could be a natural disaster, like there could be an earthquake, or there could be some kind of a big problem. We never anticipated a pandemic of this scale and magnitude and ubiquity. Unfortunately, it materialized. But in a weird way, thank God, we had our building blocks ready for the contingency plans. So we said at that time, okay, because our experiences are all physical and in person, and if a war breaks out or if riots break out in a place and everything is shut down, people are at home. And that's actually when they are seeking experiences more than ever before. because there is an insecurity, there's a loneliness, they need experiences. How do you bring it? So we said we need to pivot to digital experiences. So we said, how will these digital experiences look like? So we said, for example, one of the biggest aspirations for many consumers is saying, oh my God, it would be wonderful for me to meet with a singer, say Camila Cabello, or we want to meet with Graham McDowell or Ian Poulter or Tom Watson, one of our golf ambassadors, or Naomi Osaka for tennis. So in different passion points. So they go to the event, meet those persons, shake hands and take pictures, selfies, and all that good stuff. And they come back. That is the most memorable part of their entire experience. There is a pre, during, and post, and that's the most memorable. So we said, okay, let's carry that home. It is that critical part of it. So I can therefore go on to priceless.com and then I book an experience saying that I would like to have a meet and greet with Naomi Osaka. And what we discovered is that people actually absolutely loved it. Second, the scalability of these experiences for me goes to a different level. Because now, Naomi can, in one single day, she can meet 100 people, whereas in the past, maybe she could meet only 30 people. Plus my costs are less, so I can do it 10 times as opposed to doing just one time. So there's a multiplier effect for the whole thing. So we did that. So when the pandemic actually hit us, we are also, in a sense, if you can call it, can be lucky in a pandemic, in the sense we were, which is, it started in a sequential way. It started with China. So China shut down first. Then it went to rest of Asia. That shut down. So before it, we said, oh my God, that wave is coming. So let's be prepared, And so we had both executional lead time in that sense. Plus also we had really thought through the entire infrastructure. So we actually built digital capabilities under a platform called priceless.com 3 years back. That came in handy. So we just pivoted without missing a beat. So that's, I would say, very fortuitous for us. And
I'm not sure about that. I don't think that was lucky. I'm a huge believer in that thing about the Israeli military and the so-called 10th man, where if 9 other people in the room agree, their job is to put the exact worst case, the opposite worst case scenario and get people thinking. And it sounds to me like you had that ethos and you asked the right questions at the right time. And so I'm not sure how fortuitous it was. I think it was very smart. Michelle.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you, Jason. Very smart. And that takes, a real leader, I think, to help paint that picture of what can be, what can we do as marketers. But you've actually painted a bleaker picture about marketing, saying that, we've lost our gravitas along the way. I'm wondering, why do you think that has happened, one? But also, as we look to really change that and help, get our gravitas back, what should we be thinking about in the next generation of marketers and how we train them?
Yeah, see, if I were to just say firstly, why do I believe that marketing has lost its gravitas and we are in an existential crisis, right? So many surveys have been done, including one by McKinsey, amongst CEOs. A vast majority of CEOs, almost it's 73, 74%, in fact, it is ahead of 70%. They said that they have no or low confidence in their CMOs and in their marketing teams to be able to drive business growth. That to me is an ultimate disaster. That's a crisis of confidence, number one. As a result, they are now bringing a new breed of C-suite executives, like the chief revenue officer, chief growth officer, chief customer officer to the table. And the question we have to ask is, if growth, revenue, and customers are not part of marketing, what is left in marketing? Right? It's fairly fluffy. Number 3, marketers. We have studied, those of us from a slightly older age category, you say, we have learned about the 4 P's of marketing. Today, an overwhelming majority of companies do not have marketing managing products. An overwhelming majority. Products are done by somebody else. So the first P is gone. Marketing doesn't do pricing because either product does pricing or finance does pricing or somebody else does, but not marketing. So pricing is gone. Place, which is distribution, which is logistics, is not handled by marketing. So what the hell is marketing doing? They're barely hanging on to one pillar, which is promotion, which is a sad state of affairs. It's like, this is the scope now suddenly shrinks, and now we are one of the four pillars. That's one problem. And the functions, when they are split out and given to other people, people start asking, what the hell is marketing doing? These guys are spending lots of money. They're creating pretty advertisements, producing, going to events, and it seemed to be a very dispensable department for many cases. Now, some companies have already started eliminating the role of CMO altogether. And like I keep saying, these are not some vague industrial products which barely do any real marketing in a real sense, but these are blue chip packaged goods companies like Johnson & Johnson who have done away with the role of CMO. And that trend is continuing, which is worrisome, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And so when you have no confidence from the CMO, from the CEO, roles of CMOs are being eliminated, and therefore marketing is losing its seat at the table of the CEO. And you have a situation of marketing being fragmented, etc. How do you say that marketing is not in an existential crisis? So that's one part of it. Why has it come to this state? Since mid-1990s, there has been a quantification movement within marketing that is driven by data analytics and technology. Till that time, marketing ruled the roost with the right brain thinking, through creativity, through judgment and analysis as in intuition and not analytics, but using the right side, the design elements, the consumer psychology, the anthropology, the sociology, and so on. That worked brilliantly for us. But starting the mid-1990s, data has entered in a big way. Data analytics has entered into marketing in a big way. And marketers, classically trained marketers, have come from a qualitative background. They struggle to keep up with the technology. They struggle to keep up with the data. So when a CEO or a CFO asks a CMO or any marketer, what exactly is the ROI that I'm getting for so many $1 million I'm giving you on this campaign? And if they look back at them and say, look, my brand awareness has gone up, or my net promoter score has gone up, or my brand predisposition has gone up, and some other such marketing metric, they don't care. The problem is a marketer should not be giving a marketing answer to your business question. You have to give a business answer to your business question. Otherwise, you are seen as hiding behind jargon, or that you don't know what you're talking about, or that you don't understand the business financials. And that's also true in many cases. That leads to a direct erosion of confidence of the CEO or of the CFO in the CMO. That's, I think, is a huge factor. My worry is going forward, it's only going to increase because even more data is coming in. Even more analytics are happening in a big way. And artificial intelligence is coming, which takes the entire analytics to a different area. Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much. It's going to a completely different area altogether, different level altogether. So marketing is going to become incredibly data-driven, in spite of all the data privacy regulations and everything else. We can talk about it, but even in those, with those constraints and with those realities there in front of us, data is going to be ever more critical. With so many technologies that are coming at us, literally, which will usher us into what I call as the fifth paradigm of marketing, life is going to be very different. And marketers are hopelessly unprepared. Now, I have heart-to-heart chats with my peers, both here in the USA through ANA or internationally through the World Federation of Advertisers, where I serve as their president. And we have this open, candid conversation. Say, guys, do we understand? Are we prepared for this future? And the answer is no, we are hopelessly unprepared. Today, marketers ask many CMOs, to put their hand on their heart. And do they really understand what goes on inside programmatic? Programmatic is 25 years old. Do they understand programmatic? The answer is no. Do they understand how blockchains can be deployed? The answer is no. Blockchains seem to be something else, somebody else's problem. What happened is, since the third paradigm, the agenda of marketing has been completely hijacked by the technology guys. Smart technology guys have found that this whole place was so fluffy that they can come in and they can actually set the thing. And ad tech companies, they have really stolen the thunder, which we have handed over, I would say sadly, but we need to take it back. Now, why I'm optimistic about the future in this phase of gloom and doom is that when data and technology advance so rapidly into the future, the competitive field will be extremely democratized, which means even tiny companies with minimal resources are able to compete on an equal footing against the very large companies. That means the competition for large companies is going to be intense, brutal than ever before. If they have to survive and thrive, they have to do that only through marketing, because nobody else is going to differentiate and nobody else is going to give you that leg up. So marketing is going to be critical for the future. So there is going to be a contextual momentum that marketing will have. But on the other hand, marketers have to be prepared for that, which means they have to invest in learning. You cannot be ignorant. You have to learn. Knowledge cannot be delegated. You should know at least, you don't have to become a subject matter expert on every area, but you need to know enough about each one of these areas that impact how you run your marketing to an extent that you're able to ask the right questions. And when answers are given, you're able to decipher, saying, okay, this is a fluffy answer or is it a good answer, right? And I'll give one small tangible example. Like, and I keep seeing vendors coming all the time. Oh, my solution is powered by AI. That's a standard kind of a term dropping, right? Everything is powered by AI these days. Now, I actually, the nerd that I am, I did a course on artificial intelligence on Coursera. I got into that quite a lot. And I had a lot of mentoring sessions with one of my colleagues who heads up artificial intelligence for MasterCard. So I said, come and teach me and ask me questions to make sure that I understood what I should be understanding to enough amount of depth. So now when a vendor or a partner comes and says, my solution is powered by AI, I said, tell me exactly how. Many of the times they themselves don't know how. And if they know a little bit, you scratch the surface, there is nothing below. It's like one big black box to everyone. You cannot be making decisions on these black boxes in this day and age. So that's a big issue. So educating ourselves, and I keep telling this not to brag, but hopefully to serve as a wake-up call to folks, saying that, look, guys, at this stage and age in my career and in my life, I spend 5 hours every single weekend for education, for learning something. I either read books, or I do Coursera programs, or I watch some TED Talks, or do whatever it is, but not for entertainment, but for purely learning purpose in a very structured kind of a fashion. I take one topic as I have to be, like, for example, how many of you are thorough with NFTs? Just can you raise your hand if you tell me how many of you know NFT is pretty deep? That is 4 people have. 4 people out of how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into 4. I can see 20 people on the screen. Maybe there is a second screen, and how many of you raised on the second screen? So we got 4 out of 20. That's how much? Like 1/5, 20%, right? 80% of us are not. One is knowing. Then if you know and understand, have you already seen applications? Right? And I think Andrea has to be disqualified for this answer because they just launched their NFTs division just yesterday, right? Was it Anheuser-Busch or was it?
That's right. Yeah,
Anheuser-Busch, right? Now that's very smart, right? And I don't know how many of you even understand what they have done. And what is the partnership between? So the point I'm trying to make it is the world is running very, very fast. There are few visionary companies and visionary brands which are actually getting onto that wave. Will it sustain as a wave, as a trend into the future? We don't know. But we cannot be ignorant. It has to be a conscious, strategic push that we have to go. So education is one thing we have to. Second, if you look at the next generation of people who are entering marketing, unfortunately, most of the students in many colleges have a very wrong perception of what marketing is. Many of them think that marketing is a con game. It's all about manipulating people to do things that they don't want to do and that are not good for them. That is the perception students carry. ANA has done some studies. This has come, and they have actually shown it on videos, and my jaw was dropping. I said, during the days when I graduated, it was still a noble profession. But today it seems to be a con game. That's a perception. And number two, marketing today is rated in terms of their choice as a profession below accounting and below nursing. Now, how low can you get? Now, nursing, I have got a very healthy respect for in a different way. But accounting, how can you be below accounting or marketing? You know, that really gives me a lot of grief. I said, this is not correct. We are not marketing. We have to marketing appropriately to this next generation. And when you go to these colleges, now, professors are using hopelessly outdated case studies. They don't have good material. And they are the ones who are building the next generation. And I interact with a number of professors. And in fact, I helped Harvard Business School completely change their entire MBA curriculum for marketing. Okay, of course, I was doing the plug for my book, but aside that self-interest, the point is they have understood, they have appreciated, and they have changed the entire course. Take a look at the new curriculum, you'll see that. Number one. Number two, we have to work with the professors, give them latest material. You know, if 4 Ps are not managed by marketing, why are we learning the 4 Ps model in MBA? Think about it, right? So Harvard got rid of 4 Ps. They're not teaching 4 Ps anymore. And that's correct. And I was pushing and driving that, which I feel good about, that they are doing the right thing. And I'm convinced that we don't have to learn 4 Ps. There are so many other things we have to learn, which we are not learning. We are not being taught in the colleges. One. Second, case studies. We have to give them live case studies. Even today, they are doing cases from 1980s and 1990s. Unbelievable. Like, I think even if it is more older than 5-6 years, it's already obsolete. You're talking 20 years, 25 years. Third, one of the things which used to be a major inspiration for me when I was in college was when they're visiting marketing professionals, when they are visiting as guest faculty. They would come and spend an hour or 2 hours giving a lecture and then telling the real life example. That makes your marketing really come to life. And I used to so look forward to it. Not just me, but all my classmates. We used to love those sessions. Now, many of us don't make time to go to colleges and give lectures. Students they're so receptive. They don't have any baggage. And you can really tell them what marketing is and how exciting it is, how fantastic it is, so that they don't think that marketing is below accounting, for God's sakes. Okay, on the one hand. Then the last one I would say is when they are coming into internships. Many of us treat internships very casually. They come in, you say, okay, go do this survey for the next 2 months, come back and then give your report. They'll give the report, we'll just throw the report out and then it's over. You're just fulfilling some obligation. It is such a wasted opportunity to inspire some young kids who are coming into the marketing profession. So in fact, what we have done here, at MasterCard is we actually give real, significant and substantial projects to them. So they feel that sense of significance. Wow, I'm working on something. And then when they see 3, 4, 6 months down the line, it has taken shape in the marketplace. They said, I had a hand in the creating of that particular thing. And that's also one way to attract the best people to come and join your company after their graduation, right? It's just a beautiful acquisition tool for companies, but it's more importantly, it's a fantastic inspiration for those children, for those students. And I think these are the kind of things we have to do to regain the gravitas, both from the feeder pool on one hand, all the way to, and I'll just give one example because I had to say this. We created a marketing program at MasterCard. It's equivalent to an MBA program. But focus purely on marketing. We don't get into other areas of MBA. But this one, if you go through it, It's as intense and as in-depth as a good Harvard MBA program, right? And it's over 3 months, lots of homework, lots of case studies. It's just a very intense program that we have got. And yesterday I was actually sharing it with my CEO. I said, hey, here is the new program that we have got. And kudos to him. He said, Raja, I'm not a marketer. I would love to go through this program. Now, guess what happens? When he goes through the program, will my other peers who are not marketers, will they stay away from it? And that is how you bring about cultural change in the company. Make it more marketing-centric, or marketing-driven and consumer-centric, customer-centric.
Oh my goodness, there's so much to unpack in what you just shared, Raja. So good. I went through like pit valleys, and then I had goosebumps, and, and then coming back to your one word, I can see why potential motivates you. It's not just, you know, your potential, but the potential of everyone around you too. And that was a very, very cool story.
Well, Michelle, it's all very well for you, but Raja, I have a list of questions written down, and you just answered my next question and the two after that I didn't even think to write down. So I'm gonna have to like skip all over the place now, because my next question was entirely all about how do we inculcate the new types of marketing in the next generation, and you've done it. So here's my next question. Picking up on the point you made about how technology enables small brands to compete on a much more level playing field with big brands. So slightly playing devil's advocate for a minute, Ehrenberg released a study a few years back, which I'm sure you saw, analyzing that fear amongst pretty much kind of FMCG marketers for the most part, and concluded that it was really just that, a fear, and wasn't really happening. Now, I think category by category, there are times when the ankle biters have, you know, become something to really fear. If I look at your category, it seems really far-fetched to imagine a small challenger taking a bite out of the big three brands, you know, that kind of operate in the cards market, let's say in North America, for example. Where is there anything that makes you nervous on that sort of David and Goliath kind of scale? And if so, what?
I think that's a brilliant point. And I'll give you a real example from my own industry. You go into a country like India. Okay, so you got the Goliaths, you got the Visa, you got MasterCard, and you got Amex. In terms of scale, that is the sequence of the scale. And along comes a small company called Paytm, a startup. Now, Paytm has become bigger than any of these guys in India. Take a company called Alipay. Alipay started recently, but of course, they were not a typical startup. They were a part of the Alibaba group. How big is Alipay? Then you got a different kind of a situation, which is a government-backed initiative, like China Union Pay in China. So what's the competition is coming from multiple areas. Startups like Paytm, small fintech companies, they're disrupting like crazy with brilliant concepts. They take one concept, focus on it so well, and large companies, one of the disadvantages they have is they're protecting the base, and they're trying to grow, and they're doing multiple things to satisfy this entire base. The small guys, and there are 1,000 of these small guys coming and nipping at your ankles. These guys, they take this particular thing, those guys, they want to fight on that. So as a large company, then you're competing on multiple product categories or multiple fronts. And that's very difficult. It's not easy at all. So I would say that if I have to rate the level of competition, 10, 15 years back, MasterCard would say its main competition was essentially Visa, to a smaller extent Amex and Discover, and to even smaller extent maybe JCB. That's it. But today, the spectrum is much broader, and from all the segments. Government is competing just to get that, right? Including governments. So because of nationalism in various countries, and then they say, okay, why should we allow an American company to come and manage our networks here. We would want to set up local ones, and you got that kind of things happening. And then you also have an interesting scenario where non-traditional competitors are cutting across categories. So, for example, if you look at Apple Pay, Apple, phenomenal brand, phenomenal company, and they say, okay, I'll enable my phone to become now a payment mechanism. Now, fortunately, we were the ones who actually went and pitched to them to start, using MasterCard as their backbone, so to speak. And we powered Apple Pay, and we started, this three years back, I believe, and it's already become a gigantic brand, Apple Pay. We power Samsung Pay, we power Google Pay. So it's a very different situation where now you are entering into partnerships with very powerful partners, and be able to compete in a different way, because now you have to carry your partners with you. Your carriers are very strong brands. Your partners are very strong brands. They have got their branding standards. They got their objectives. They got whole, and then it's a very different kind of a dynamic. And together you have to win. And so the entire model of how you approach the market is totally getting revamped. And it's brutal competition. And these small fintech companies, particularly when they're coming out, you should see their valuations. In 4 years, it's $1 billion company. In 4 or 5 years, multi-billion-dollar valuations. Unbelievable.
Yes. Well, we could talk for half a day about the valuations of small internet-based startups, but let's not do that right now. Phenomenal answer, and quite scary in its own way too. So listen, we really wanted to make sure that we opened this up to some questions from the floor. So I know that Nick is on the screen from the UK. So Nick, if you could unmute yourself, and we'll give you Raja for your question, and then after that, Helena, and really happy to be able to take some questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Hi, Raja. I have a question. I'm going to jump back to purpose, if that's okay. And it sort of links with something you mentioned as well around sponsorship of Osaka. So if I sort of jump back quickly to explain, if I understood this correctly, when you're talking about purpose and how not to jump on the bandwagon of anything that happens, periodically, but obviously have that being sort of, I guess, addressed within the company anyway, but stick to your purpose. When there are instances like, for instance, Osaka pulling out of major championships and your involvement with her, how do you then manage that balance when you probably feel that you should say something or at least be representing of some sort of message when it's relevant to you and you may be expected to, but yet you still need to or want to stick to your guns as far as not jumping on the bandwagon?
So the purpose doesn't change merely because the circumstance has changed. Purpose is like a North Star. Again, I'll give you a very simplistic analogy. You are here on the ground, you know that is your North Star up there in the sky, in the space. You're going in that direction. You might want to make small adjustments in your tactics, in your roadmap, in your cost marketing initiatives, but the purpose remains steady. That's why it's called North Star. The exact manifestation of that North Star can be nuanced. Now, what is our purpose? One of the things we say is inclusivity is a core value that we want to live. And inclusion, from that perspective, we said, okay, she took a stance at the time of Black Lives Matter. We didn't jump onto Black Lives Matter as in response to what the market was doing. But we were on that trip, if you were to say it's a trip, far earlier than it ever even began being thought about. Number two, we have been actually doing programs both for our employees as well as externally. We were partnering in the healthcare space on brain health and mental well-being. She was exactly talking about that. Yeah. When she's expressing, she's protesting the way there is pressure on the players, which she felt was very unreasonable. And you have to be respectful of what she's saying because it's her opinion. You cannot be dismissive of it. So what what did we do? We came out and we said, we admire her. What she did, we admire her. And, and she's shining light on some very important issues that as an industry, we need to take cognizance of. So that's what we stated. But we didn't jump on to now run a campaign on mental well-being because that's in the current trending topic. But mental well-being is something which we had been focused on for a number of years, as an example, right? If you look at LGBTQE, right? LGBTQ has become now a popular topic that people are talking about, and you celebrate diversity and so on. Way back in 2011 or whenever it was, we started a whole campaign called Acceptance Matters. It was meant to have twin meanings. One is that your MasterCard is accepted everywhere. Other one is saying that everyone need to be accepted and acceptance really matters. So it was a very intelligent play on words, but we started, and then we started sponsoring the Pride Parade in New York. We got trashed for it. A lot of people have said, you guys have lost it. And even as recently, we have launched a card called True Name Card. This is for transgender people. Many banks were very, very scared to touch it. But fortunately, BMO Harris said, we will take a stance along with MasterCard. We took a stance together and we launched the True Name Card. Now, Europe, we are launching it in 31 countries. And multiple banks have joined, including Citibank here in the US. It's fantastic, right? Because we believe in it. Who the hell are we to say somebody else that you should look like this, you should behave like this? So long as they're living their life to their liking and as per their choices, it's up to them. You are not God. You don't control their lives. Let them control their lives, right? So long as they're not affecting other people, they're not going around shooting people down or anything of that sort. They're living their lives. Let them do it. Just because they look different than what you look like, and I look black, I look bald, and therefore I'm a bad guy and somebody else, that's all nonsensical in this day and age. We took that stance. So, and I get lots of hate mail. We get as a company, a lot of hate mail. Somebody saying that you guys are not realizing the fact that the LGBTQE is a manifestation of a psychological disorder. And instead of asking them to go and take care of, consult a psychologist, you guys are encouraging them by giving these kind of things. MasterCard, we hate you. No, you can't. But then if you're scared of receiving that kind of a feedback, you'll never be able to stand up. And we politely replied to them, we respectfully disagree. It is not a psychological disorder. And assuming everyone to be in one standardized template, and that's how you have to be, is not correct, right? You cannot stereotype people, and so we have been on this kind of a journey. So consistency is critical. If criticism mounts, don't back away. You have to be diplomatic, you have to be tactful, but you cannot deviate from your purpose. That's very critical. Consistency over the long period of time is important. And that's where I said, don't keep chasing the shiny pennies. You decide in advance. So today, for example, if something comes about, we have to support people, who are suffering because of some earthquake or because of some social unrest or whatever else it is there in some country. We can definitely contribute, but it's not just like you're adding that because it is a new trend that I want to capitalize on, which means the focus is on you and how you show up, as opposed to them and how do you help them. Does it answer me your question, Nick?
Yes, very much so, and some. So yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. And Helena?
Delivery.
Hi, Raja. How are you doing?
Good, Helena. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for joining us. This is wonderful. It's always so inspiring to hear you. Now, I also had the luxury to read your book. Well, I should say listen to your book, because I did listen to it on Audible.
Thank you. Surprise, surprise.
Right? And I have to say to everyone, you really should listen or read it. It's an absolute amazing book. It's very concise. A lot of great takeaways. But I thought it was interesting because obviously you talked about the fifth paradigm and kind of how marketing should be looked at in the future. You wrote this book right before COVID hit, and I know you did make some changes and added some things in the end. But if you look back right now, 18 months after us going through this crisis, is there anything in your book you feel that you should have expanded upon, or that you feel, you know what, I left something out. I wish I would have gone a little deeper into this.
So a couple of things. Firstly, I tried to make it very easily understandable and not like a heavy reading. So number one, that was what purpose number one. Purpose number two is to cover as much of ground as possible without making it into a massive tome. Number three was to at least give a little bit of a background to each one of the topics so that people know what it is, and at least they should get a basic idea, whether it is blockchain or it's artificial intelligence or whichever is the topic, right? And I said this should be appealing to marketers, irrespective of whether they're the CMO or a starting level, entry level, and ideally also to the business people, meaning people outside of marketing or as a business. I think if I have to improve things, what I would have probably done is provided a lot more links for people who want to whet their appetite into each one of those topics. So if you want to really get into the depth on blockchain, these are the 3 books, these are the 3 links of some videos or courses. I think that kind of a reference is one thing which I wish I had given, for each topic. That I think is something which if I had to redo, I would have done it. Number 2, I would say is, I should have written actually 2 versions of this book. They say you cannot be everything to everybody. Meaning I should have written one for the business leaders who are non-marketers. It's marketing for non-marketers, literally. And then marketing for marketers. I would have been able to go more in-depth and tangible for marketers, and slightly take it even a higher level of a perspective for the business leaders. So I would have written 2 books and not 1 book in that context. These were the 2 things I would think. If I have to look back and say I should have done differently, probably that's what it will be.
Thank you. I love that you did have some things. I was like wondering, would he have something?
Of course, no work is perfect in the first go.
That's great. Well, we're a little conscious of time. We only have about 3 minutes left. I can't believe how fast this hour has gone. So we'll probably bring to a close here and say, wow, how much ground we covered, Raja, in our short time. You've definitely inspired us to perhaps think differently about some things, definitely on purpose and how we can get our gravitas back in marketing, and some new areas of knowledge and expertise that we need to continue to grow, both as leaders, but our organizations. So if you all could please join me in saying a huge thank you on behalf of the Marketing Society to Raja for spending his time with us.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.